spiral. This is what we getting into. Divine rise, great rising, divine rise. Blessed be to the day. May it be everything you require to create all that you desire. The more you repress, the more food you give to that of what you will revert, of that reverts. The more that you have repressed, will lead to the more that you have to revert into. As I finish my postings and all the other little groups and such. But yeah, the more that you revert, the more that you have repressed, the more indefinite aspects, that indefinite cycle of reverting. One of the big things that we don't really think about, is using everything as food or as fuel, and allowing ourselves to take everything in as food and not denying or suppressing it. Like, one of the biggest things is we shouldn't be suppressing doubt. You shouldn't be suppressing any emotion. You shouldn't suppress anything. It should all be allowed to be used to understand the correspondence of what it's connected to. And the biggest one of this aspect is after completion. You know, we do the gates. This is the gate talk series of the Meditate and Elevate. So every day for the next couple of, we're going to get into the gates of our human design. This one, the gate card that I pulled today was after completion. I'm going to read the card, then we're going to build through the reading to it. After completion, in the spiral, I don't like that. In the spiral, all ends are actually beginnings. The future is dependent upon establishing with certainty in the I didn't even know that was a real word. The validity or the validation of a pattern. The fuel is to question. So this is what I mean by the aspects of that doubt. The doubt is an essential inspiration. Doubt is the ability to be able to question or trigger where you have a lack of confidence. So if you're doubting something in this thought process, if I'm doubting something, instead of me allowing myself to fall back into go back into a repressed state or revert back into an old mindset or an old mind frame, I now am aware and I allow myself to allow that to be released. What is this repressed feeling? What is that what a lot of times we come into a space, it's easy to denounce something or take something away or tear something away from ourselves if we're not within the space of us not accepting that doubt. Doubt is, remember, nothing here is going to be based on doubt is bad, overthinking is bad. No, these are triggers. These are the definitions, these are the defining aspects of the triggers that once we understand it, we can use it to our own gain. Remember, once you understand the spell, you can manipulate it to work in your favor. The biggest one that we have to manipulate in the favor is the aspect of doubt. For a lot of us, we have a lot of doubt, and it's based on our confidence, based on where we're at within that, where we're at within our work, where we're at within our space, where we're at within the things that are coming from our heart, coming from our mind, coming from where we're rooted in. There's always going to be this elaborate maze of doubt. But the key is to understand when you are feeling the doubt, when that trigger of doubt is coming to the surface, what is it teaching me? What is the underline? Not just the surface. Not just the surface. This goes for the job. Remember, everything leads back to shadow work. That job, that relationship, that friendship, whatever it may be, family, old partnerings, everything that brings you an intense amount of doubt, it's something that you have to understand. That's what's going to inspire you to question everything, to find that pattern. Within that pattern is your design. Within that pattern is your design. So when you think about the after completion of that spiral effect, most of us go through that. We understand life is in that spiral effect. You go down this spiral. Things that keep showing up over and over and over again, they're parts that trigger you. These are parts of a pattern that you have not yet learned. You haven't learned it yet. The more that you seem to repress and say, I'm going to deal with that later, I'm going to deal with that later, the more fuel that you give to you reverting back to something else. A lot of us come into that. I remember for myself, a lot of times I would have that. I had deep self-doubt in myself, just in trying new things outside of the old imprint. I remember when I first started my campaign into entrepreneurship. Use it as that. Using the aspect of entrepreneurship. I remember the first thing that I was doing was started as a personal trainer. Started as a personal trainer, was doing personal training, and I had to get over the doubt. I remember the doubt had me in this space where I was buying every piece of clothing, article of clothing, some of the best aspects of, at the time, some of the best products to put into my body and use into my regimen, and creatine, all of these aspects. I was buying all of this stuff, but I never could submit to the process of using these products. I couldn't submit to the abuse of using these products because I was looking at, we've done it most of the time, I was looking at the physical representations that were used to sell that product. A lot of us come into that space, that spiral effect, and we look for something in the external of ourselves to show us, like, that's what I'm supposed to look like, this is what I'm supposed to be, this is where I'm supposed to be at. If I do this, this, and this, then I'm supposed to be like this in 3 weeks. But I wasn't, when you're doing it based on that external aspect of that spiral effect to yourself, all you're doing is never completing. You're only creating imprints within those old patterns. Remember, we talked about imprints last week. We're getting into that full circle this week. So whenever it came full circle, like, okay, cool, I went to the gym a couple days out the week. I went to the gym 5 days a week, did some workouts. I started denying myself nourishment, started putting in more stuff. So at the end of a 6-month process, I was no further ahead than I expected to be. There was small, to my mind, were insignificant aspects of thought that I was living in. Like, okay, cool, I lost a couple pounds and I gained some muscle definition here, but I don't feel how I should feel. I don't feel that burst of energy that I felt in the beginning of my process. Where's that burst of energy that I was feeling in the beginning of the process? I was excited, I was in the gym, I was working out, and then I started missing days because I wasn't having that feeling of that energy. Because I didn't define that pattern to keep building into that energy. This comes a lot of the space when we're going into the aspects of the repression. As long as you have things repressed, you're always going to revert. You're always going to have a chance to revert. You're always going to revert back to the old pattern because you have something repressed that you haven't dealt with. I remember always stepping back. I would go a couple steps forward and take like 10 steps back. A lot of us, when it comes into your healing process, that repression monologue, that repression chamber or your heart chakra, the shit that you got locked up in that, the shit that got your heart, your chest feeling really, really tight, the shit that got your chest feeling really, really, really tight, and it's only being fueled by the old roots of the self-doubt that's in your sacral chakra, and then your power structure of your solar plexus, it's now trying to it's an overload trying to make you get through the day, get through that cycle, get through that aspect that's stuck in your psyche, is because you're not dealing with what's repressed. And a lot of the times we come into that based on that acknowledgement factor. When we think about acknowledgement, we think about all I got to do is admit what it is, and then that's it. Yeah, I got a problem. Yeah, I got a drug problem. Yeah, I've been through a trauma. Yeah, I've been through this. Yeah, I've been through these things. Yeah, I've been through all of these. Yeah, I've been through all of these aspects of my life over and over and over again. But the key aspect to you coming into true acknowledgement to move forward into acceptance is by accepting it without the bias. In that state of your completion, you're finding that pattern. When you're acknowledging it, you're not only acknowledging what it is, you're acknowledging your openness to see this pattern. This is why a lot of people, when people start doing their meditation and start doing their shadow work, exactly. If they start doing their shadow work, and it's like, okay, cool, I acknowledge that I'm this, I acknowledge that I'm broken, I acknowledge that I'm this, I'm acknowledging that I'm this. But when the things that were under that repression since you now have brought it to the surface, you're calling it to the surface, calling your power back to you, now you got to go through that process. That's the only way you can get to the acceptance. A lot of us like okay, I acknowledge it, so that means I accept it, that means I can apologize for it. So why haven't you apologized for it? Because after you're able to apologize and forgive yourself for it, after you do this full cycle of that, after that completion of the work, guess what you're able to do? You can thank whoever, whatever it was that initiated that trauma, initiated that memory. How many people have come to the point in their work where you're saying, I can thank my mother, I can thank my pops, I can thank my father, I can thank my uncle, I can thank my aunt, I can thank these people, I can thank them for what they brought to the surface. I can thank them for the lesson that I learned. It's not about them. It's not about them like you're thanking them in this. When we think about this aspect of thing, we're like, why would I thank them for hurting me? Why would I thank them for putting me through what they put me through? Why would I thank them for that? Because it was a part of your process. That removes, this is going to help you remove that bias filter. When you're in that state of you completing that, when you're completing it, that nostalgic feeling of you being in that space, that affirmation that you are accepting that you're within that space, the nostalgia is that memory. The nostalgia is simply the aspect of the feeling of the memory. The affirmation is, how am I going to get through and use this energy of the feeling of that memory? That's going to lead you into the aspects of the underlining core of said memory. Why it was put into that space. See, when we think about going into our memories, the first thing that we get to is the aspect, okay, I know that the memory's there. I know that it happened to me in my life. I know that it happened to me. That's the acknowledgement. Within the acknowledgement is the knowledge of that memory. So you have to, once you're now in that aspect, okay, here's the memory. I have to allow myself to be within this memory. I have to allow myself to breathe within this memory. Because that's the only way I'm going to gain the knowledge and be able to accepting this memory. Once you put that aspect into that memory, now you go into the aspects of the acceptance of that memory. It happened at this point in time. I did not have the knowledge that I have now. I did not have the support system that I have now. And this is when you're going back and forth, you're looking at your space. Because all of this work, remember that separation, I'm always saying that separation requires elevation. Elevation is going to require separation. Either way, it makes sense when you say it backwards and forwards. But that elevation is going to require separation. You going into that space, now that you're using doubt, because now you're going to have a lot of doubt going to come up. Whenever you're doing the acknowledgement process of your shadow work, you're going to have a lot of doubt come up. A lot of the energy of doubt, guilt, shame, all of these aspects are going to come up. These are the triggers that are going to take you deeper into it. You got to ride that wave. You got to allow yourself to ride into that wave. You gotta let that ether burn. Because this is going to take us into this process of really sitting there with it. Because now that doubt that's coming up, naturally, if I'm not taking in the doubt and making myself honest, what happens when you doubt something based on the emotional impulse? You start doubting all of the things that are used as the reflections around you, and start putting doubt. You start now putting that projection of doubt onto them. Why they're there, you start doubting why they're there, but it's always going to be on this uneven bias. It's always going to be in that imbalanced bias, the emotional impulse. You're trying to get yourself back. You're like, no, I don't want to release it. I don't want to be weak. I don't want to look vulnerable. I don't want to look this way. You need that aspect. You need to weaken that. You need to weaken the parameters, that ceiling, that floor of the human thought. That's the only way to going outside of your comfort zone. You need to weaken that floor of the human thought. What was created within that human thought. What you created within that human thought. This is why for a lot of people, when they go into that hermit stage, and you can feel you'll feel good as hell being in that hermit stage. And some people stay too long in the hermit stage, and then they never come back out of the hermit stage. Every stage that you're going into in this aspect of this spiral effect is to take you to the next level. It's not meant for you to stay there. I meditate every single day. Whenever I'm feeling kind of bad, I go meditate. Whenever I do something that I know I shouldn't have done, I go grab my Palo Santo. No. You're shifting yourself into these higher aspects. Because from meditation, from you having to sit in the position of meditation, you're learning how to put yourself into that state of awareness. So now when you graduate to the next stage, you went through your acknowledgement phase, you went through the acceptance phase, you went through the apology phase, you went through that apology and that forgiveness phase. Now you're in the thankful phase, the thankful phase, the gratefulness phase, and now you're sitting there like, okay, cool. I no longer have to sit down and meditate. I'm in a constant state of meditation because I'm in a constant state of self-awareness. And when everybody's talking about, oh, you self-aware, so you dodge this and that. One of the biggest things that people say about self-awareness, being balanced, and don't look for perfection, don't look for independence, don't look for codependency. You're going into self-sufficiency. Being in balance is being in understanding that there is the negative aspect and the positive aspect. Being self-aware is going into a situation, and every time that you go into that space, you're not looking for anything, but you're open for everything that you're going to find. You're not looking for anything because when you're looking for it, seeking you shall find, you're going to find it based on the fundamental bias. You're going to find it based on the bias. So you be like, niggas ain't shit? You going to find some niggas that ain't shit. Bitches ain't nothing? You going to find something with bitches ain't nothing. My job is robbing me? You going to find your job robbing you. Because you're initiating that thought in your mindset, but it's going back to that repressed memory. So you always have a reason to revert. The longer that you keep the things in your life, the longer that you keep those aspects on your heart chakra repressed, the quicker that it is for you to revert. You'll always remain into the status quo. Whatever your status quo is. Whether it's the aspect of you feeling that I have to do all of this before I can get to this, that's your status quo. What is the repressed underlying thought process deep down inside that's leading you to that thought? That's when you're bringing it to the surface. As long as you keep that status quo, you'll never access that repression chamber. The repression chamber is what's everything that's in your heart. You can get some of the best things to happen to you. Some of the best things that can happen to you that are going to invoke change into your life. But you'll never fully be able to experience it because it's doing what it's supposed to do. So you get that relationship, friendship, you get that new hit of energy to your chest, hit you like a fucking ton of bricks to the chest, and it hits you, and you feeling it. You like, yeah, I love it, but why can't I let it go any deeper? Why is it bringing up this doubt? Why is it bringing up my self-doubt? Why is it bringing up my insecurities? Why is it bringing up all of these things? Because that's what that energy is supposed to do. It's not supposed to help you be able to mask it. It's supposed to help you become open. This when you're going through that spiral effect, that pattern, finding those patterns in your life. Why do I keep reverting back to this? What is the original thought? What does that trigger? What does this doubt trigger? Why can't I seem to follow myself? Why can't I seem to go all the way through a process? What's stopping me? These are those questions that you got to ask yourself, and then you have to build you're building the beginnings of your rise around that. This is going to help you to be able to shift. But that's that aspect of the after completion. Use that doubt. Whenever you're in doubt of something, that doubt is a trigger. Whenever you're in doubt, doubt is a trigger. Whenever you're overthinking, the overthinking is a trigger. But you have to use it and understand, like you have to be able to still yourself in that space. If you're having a lot of over-doubt cycles, you're having a lot of them overthinking cycles, it's time for you to sit there with it like, why am I always, what is the underline of these overthoughts, this overthinking? What is the underline of my doubt? What is the underline of my confidence issues? Where is it coming from? My chest is just sweating talking about this, just releasing it. But from there, we're looking at the aspect of after completion. I'm going to as we're doing these gate series, tune in. You know we're doing this every year, I'm going to pull some oracle cards to build into the after completion aspect. So I'm going to shuffle up the cards real quick. If you're interested within a personal gate opening reading, inbox me for the details. It's 3333 inbox and DM only. The reason I'm saying DM because I'm also sharing this to Instagram after we do this. But I want you to be the best, so we're gonna do that aspect. If it's making you feel a certain type of way, you gotta ride that wave. You gotta allow the feeling that you're gonna feel. Do not suppress it. We've been so used to suppressing shit. Like it come up to the surface and we're like, nope, go back down. Because how did you start? That was your original imprint. When that emotion come up, you pull it back down. Ride that wave. You got to ride that wave. But you have to take control of that wave by acknowledging that wave where it's going to lead you. A lot of people are scared for where it's going to lead them because, I left that in my past for a long time ago, or this was over here a long time ago. You got to let it out. I remember I was a fucking human IED. I had a fucking rage complex that was out of this fucking world between the ages of 12 and 16. I was Broly strong. Let me put it that way. I was Broly strong when I would get upset. I was Broly strong when I got upset. You couldn't tell me shit. Let me get upset. And then I explained it in the lecture. I explained it in Friday's lecture. I would use my anger to fuel my detachment. I would use my depression, my sadness to fuel my detachment. I would use my extreme happiness when other motherfuckers weren't happy as a form of detachment. I was using my emotions. I was using my emotional impulses to stay within the narrative that I was at. So every time something triggered me, someone brought something up to me, I would always use one of these aspects to keep them. Go back, go over there somewhere. I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that. But now you got to be in that space to be able to be open to change that motion. Yeah, that card just fell off, so we don't do that. So when we're thinking about the aspects of after completion, those patterns, the first thing that we're looking at is the energy in motion. What is that doubt motioning me to? What is that doubt that I'm going through lead me to do next? Let me follow these breadcrumbs real quick. What does that doubt lead me to next? Every time I'm doubting something, question yourself and really look at, okay, cool. I'm feeling doubt. Meditate on it. Allow it to come to the surface. And then follow yourself. observe it. You literally going to be able to observe yourself because now you became the observer, and going through the experience. Even when you're going through the experience, now you're looking like, every time I'm in doubt, I always find myself over here. This is you becoming self-aware. Every time I'm in doubt, I find myself making that phone call. I find myself making this pit stop. I find myself doing this, and this. These are the things that I do within doubt. Now, you build into the aspect of that motion. Now you understand that motion. Now it's the key of you going into, are these healthy motions or are these unhealthy motions to the authentic self? Are these healthy motions or unhealthy motions to me becoming into the authentic self of me? Is this based upon me being in the aspect of me feeling that I need to stay within the status quo so I don't miss anything? Still trying to live in that space? Is this based upon me trying to keep myself in that repressed monologue? Is this the aspect of me going all the way down to my authentic self? Because there's a difference between your authentic selves. There's the soul, there's the ego layering, and there's the actual soul. The ego layering is the aspect of accepting a definition outside of yourself, but not building within that definition. It's cool that you want to be a god. It's cool that you pick out that you were the great mother of some sort of energy. It's cool. But how are you building yourself in that energy? Remember, I've broken down many times that every single deity that you interface with has a higher and a lower aspect. The lower aspects are the aspects that are destroyed. The destroyer aspects of any of those energies are the things that are meant to interface and destroy the aspects of the humanity. The higher aspects are the higher aspects of what you're tapping into as you're becoming your higher self. So they all have that higher and lower. One of the biggest ones is Kali right now, Kali the Destroyer. You're looking at aspect. Her lower aspects are to destroy the human narrative. Her higher aspects are the mother, the Durga goddess, and all of that, the higher aspects of that energy to that space. But you got to go through that work, that understanding that motion. That's going to lead us into the aspects of clarity. When we're looking at those aspects when we're looking at the aspects of those motions, and we're now stepping out of that space of like, oh my God, I can't believe I did this again for the 13th time. Or I don't know why every time I go 4 weeks without eating chicken wings, and then somebody made me mad, so I went and got me some lemon pepper wets. If you eat lemon pepper dry, that's nasty. I went and got me some lemon pepper wets. Why do I always seem to go back? Why do I always seem to revert back to that thought process? That's that nexus point. Because once you acknowledge the doubt, that's going to lead you to that nexus point of follow the motion of what you're doing to gain clarity to where you're going at with that. What can lemon pepper wings represent to you? Every time you ate the lemon pepper wet wings, what did it represent to you? Every time you picked up that bottle, every time you picked up whatever it is, what does that represent to you? You got to go deep within. You got to go deep inside. Who is the first representation of you seeing that in your life? 9 times out of 10, we put ourselves into this space. I'm gonna pull one more card. We put ourselves into that space where we're looking at the external. Like we look at religion. We'll look at the white man. We'll look at the Asian people. We'll look at this person. We'll look at that. We'll look at that failed relationship. This, and this, and this. But the constant common denominator was you. Now, from that constant denominator, where were you stemmed from that led you to that point? That leads you to the aspect of really getting in for that acknowledgement. Going through this phase of acknowledgement. So you can get into that space of acceptance. And a lot of us, like we try to rush it because we still stuck within time. You need to take as much time as you need in each space that you're going into. But the key of you actually doing the work in that space is going to let you know that as you're doing your work, the things that are going to come up are going to be nurturing your higher self, and they're going to stop nurturing those lower values. That's a big thing for clarity. When you start acknowledging those emotions, when you start having the clarity that you're going to gain, it's going to build you into that space that the things are going to start. It is just where you're at in your space, in your representation. These things are going to start talking to your higher self. So if you're always from a state of struggle, you're going to have people start coming around you talking about money more. Because we understand money equates to energy, equates to currency, equates to that energy. If you're going into the aspects of your health, you're going to have people that are going to start wanting to do more healthy things more. You ain't going to have to wait and sit there, like, man, I did a whole challenge that I wanted everybody to do with me. You're going to have the, when you're in that space doing that work, you're going to lead yourself to that space. That means you're going to be sitting there, you did a couple squats, you're doing your workouts, and all of a sudden now you're going to the health food stores and the more healthier places to go, and then you're going to see someone going to look at you and see you dancing over there with your headphones in, and then that's going to be that conversation that you need. But you got to clear the old space so you can get to that space. Yeah, you're going to feel doubt. Yeah, you're going to feel self-confidence issues. Can you be like, but I haven't been doing it that long, and they look like they've been doing it that long. That's why they're there for. That energy is there to usher you into that next phase. But you got to become open with it. When you have that, now that you're self-aware of the doubt, you can use that doubt as your, well, I'm feeling this type of way. The only thing that can stop me is not asking the question. The only thing that's going to stop me is not asking the question. The only thing that's going to stop me is the way that I ask this question, and if I don't ask that question. Because I have to learn. I got to get better. I got to get better. I got to get stronger. Because that's a part of my process. And that leads us to the last card. Access of the specialization. As you gain that clarity, as we just said, you're going to come around individuals that specialize in where you're trying to go next. They're the specialists within that space. They no longer look. What you're no longer looking for is the old imagery. The old imageries that leave you in a state of feeling okay. 1 second. I learned how to pause it.
Oh my God.
It's over. I learned how to pause. It's over.
Why you throw away my Black and Mild?
Y'all try to drink 3 bottles of water since y'all woke up. I'm hyped as hell. But yeah, you're going to be going into the space not only of what you specialize in, but you're going to find you're going to be in the environments that are going to nurture the energy that you are supposed to be specializing in. This gets you closer to your purpose. It's one thing, like when people, this is one thing that I've noticed when people get confused when they're doing things is they do a little bit of their work and they're like, yeah, I got a purpose. No. Your purpose is outside of bias. Your purpose is outside of comfort. Your purpose, everything that you're wanting, everything that you're desiring is outside of comfort. It's going to be some of the most uncomfortable moments in the world. I remember the first time sitting here putting together music, some of the most uncomfortable thoughts came to my mind. Some of the most doubtful thoughts came to my mind. But then I started noticing was like I already built the list of contacts that would give me the needed boost. That's the soul tribe. That's what they're doing. Your soul tribe helps you expand. Your soul tribe helps you expand. And that's where you're going into. When you're going through this cycle effect of that completion and you're catching on to them patterns and you feel the doubt, you feel the discouragement, you feel the depression, you feeling this, you feeling yourself wanting to go back and keep it repressed, go through it. Sit there with yourself. I don't care if you got to sit there with yourself and watch cartoons all day. Because I've done that shit plenty of times. Sat back, watched cartoons all day. I remember watching the new old Sonic the Hedgehog, the newer version of Sonic the Hedgehog that came out, watching Power Rangers. I remember watching a bunch of cartoons that day just to bring my inner child to a state of calm so we actually can allow that stuff to come to the surface. And I remember all types of those memories and all that shit was coming up, like hit me in my face, like my pops calling me fat when I was like 5. I was like, niggas baby weight. Like all of these aspects, I remember all that shit started streaming through, coming off my heart. And I was looking in the spaces where I was at that point in time, in those facets of what was connected to that aspect. And then I was getting deeper into that aspect of the work that gave me my clarity, that helped me steady my motion, that helped me specialize, that helped me go into the specialization of what I needed to specialize in that movement. That's the state of that's that state of allowing that doubt. Remember, that doubt is an essential inspiration tool. The doubt teaches you to question. It's not what you're questioning, it's how you're questioning. You're got that aspect of bias when you're asking that question. That means you're accepting that it's easy for you to say, you did this, this, and this to me. Because in return, when you come into that space, somebody's going to be challenging you. Guess what they're going to do? You wouldn't have none of the stuff you did if I didn't do the stuff that I did. And then where do you go from there? But no, what's up from there? We both in this space doing that work. When people can't answer that question, they know they got some work to do. When people can't answer that question, they're the ones that you need to start being around more, because they're gonna hold you accountable. The ones that hold you accountable, the ones that are gonna trigger that accountability narrative within inside of you, ones that need to be around more. But it's not based on bias, it's based on looking at you. That old narrative of, girl, it's not you, it's him. Yo, man, you know these bitches ain't loyal. Man, you know it's this, and this. Those are the individuals that are falling off. That's the old energy. Those are the things that are falling away. That's the old cycle. That's the old pattern. That's the old aspect that kept you in that state of repression. You coming up higher now. You want to make that full circle. Speaking of the full circle, this week's episode on the God Hour podcast is full circle. We're going to be getting deeper into the aspect of status quo, deeper into the repression chamber, and deeper into the authentic self. 6 a.m. every Tuesday, because we know today is the only day that matters. Today is the only day that matters. Whether it's the moon day and you going through change, it's the only day that matters that I'm investing in my change. Whether it's Tuesday, that day of that win, I'm blowing forward, because that's the only day that matters, is me moving forward. Whether it's Wednesday and I'm now winning that day of understanding the night before, it's the only day that matters because I'm moving forward. Whether it's Thursday and now I'm looking at how I'm going to shape my day in this day of 10, only day that matters because I'm moving forward. Whether it's the Friday or the day of Venus, I'm looking moving forward in the love that I molded for myself. Whether it's Saturday is my day of release, or Sunday my day of my reflect and my rise. It's only one day that matters. I want you to be the fucking best. I desire you to be the best. I desire you to exceed, because I desire for myself to exceed. Because that becomes that aspect of that reflection. That's the collective aspect of that consciousness. Removing yourself from that, breaking that ceiling, or breaking that floor of that human thought, and allowing yourself to cultivate within that genius. Cultivate that intelligence. Become the best. Let's be fucking great. I love you. You love us. Ashe.